So, this is the after show of this first 3 hours of the miniseries Robotech thing. And yeah, so we just watched the premiere here. It premiered on Saturday, but technically I got watching it here on Sunday. So we have a Saturday evening morning cartoon that was ready that aired our Transformer thing. It was on YouTube and it's free, so watch it. If there are any ads, it's YouTube doing it, and you just need to get ad block or something to get rid of it, because I didn't put any ads on it. It's not AdSense. There's no ads. So if they find any ads, there's no ads. I didn't do that. That shouldn't be, because it's not AdSense at all. There's no sponsor at all. Queen Bee Studios is just the other room that we filmed it in. So it is set up for episode 2 and 3, and more efficiently, so they can go in and film 2 and 3. We're not going to pre-record the audio because that's not going to work to do that. It's just not going to sound right. It's going to waste a lot of film. So yeah, 2 and 3, and the old-fashioned way. And I guess the strikes have let up a little bit, but there are negotiations. But we're not SAG and we're not WGA, so it doesn't matter. We're not in the NAFTA and the other Actors Guild, so it doesn't matter. It's independent film. Independent films, and we're able to make them. Yeah, there's a new Transformers video game, Regeneration. Don't know anything about it, so I haven't watched it. I think it's a video game, yeah. In the movie franchise, the last Rise of the Beast didn't do as well as they thought it would, but yeah, combining Beast Wars from almost 30 years ago probably wasn't the best idea they had. They were kind of doing the Netflix show. They were kind of doing mine, too. They were doing Mush. I can't take all the credit for Mush because we used scripts from Alt Transformers website Mush, and we used different lexicons as well, like this one. And so we just animated the screenplays that other people wrote, fan films that other people wrote, and then gave them bylines when they wanted them. This one, we didn't seem to have any problem with the bylines, so we went ahead when thought we might with 1 or 2 of them, but then didn't, as it turns out. They were, I don't care either way. Yeah, your fan films are fine. We were incredibly prolific. We've been doing fan films with Transformers and Robotech since after Starcrackers, which came out in 2012, and which back then you had to make everything in parts because it wouldn't download a full 90-minute movie, and so we had to have 90-minute re-release later in 2014, the whole movie. And the fan films, that's why the original version of Transformers meets Robotech is in 24 episodes, half an hour long, because it wouldn't load up a half an hour movie. Then later on, in 2020 or so, through 2021, we put the Transtech miniseries movies, each miniseries movie, out as a 3-hour miniseries movie, 1, 2, and 3. This was a sequel. This one's the spin-off, but you didn't necessarily need to know because the narrator kind of retcons the very beginning and says, separate universe where the Transformers met the Robotechs in their timeline and prevented the Zentradi Wars and the Masters War from happening. So yeah, that kind of reboots where they are, and you can just go from there and do your own version of the Sentinels, because you kind of have lexicon stories as Transformers lexicon archive stories being used as Robotech, ones that worked for Robotech. There were some movies in between, and you can watch them on the channel. You can watch of course you have The End of the Circle. We did this before, the Endless Circle. We did an adaptation of the End of the Circle novel as The Endless Circle. Really boiled it down to a 90-minute movie, but it was actually 2 half-hour ones stuck together, 2 45-minute ones and stuck together. And then we did, that was in 2015, 2016. Then there was Space Bridge in 2016, and then a re-release in 2018 where we fixed it. That was the Bioship one. There was a Return of the Shadows and the Shadow Children, but those two were about 45 minutes and then an hour later for the finale. Those weren't meant to be together, but I think there's a together one as well, or we just left it. And yeah, I just put it out as the Shadow Children, Return of the Shadows, crossing it over with Macross 7. Those stories detail what Tommy Yoon and the others didn't do in never got around to doing with Shadow Chronicles. They're going to make the Shadow Chronicles, but they only had one movie. And then they did Love Live Alive. They did something else. Nothing to do with it. So we're like, we know enough about what they were going to do with the Return of the Shadow. We'll do the Return of the Shadow. We will adapt it as Return of the Shadow and the Shadow Children, and you'll get to see it. Because they're not going to do it. So we did. And you get to see it. It's kind of the same thing here with this story. Although this story, because it's another timeline, which was altered as of 2018 by the appearance of the other people. But because the Transformers, because it doesn't match up to Robotech exactly, because that was supposed to be 2009 and 2012. So they must have, the Transformers in that other timeline must have been there earlier to mess with the timeline by the Bioship. So in that other timeline is a Transformers timeline where Robotech happens to be part of Space Bridge, happens to be part of, that timeline, where the Robotech people did exist, but things were a little different, just slightly different. Which they address in the movie, too, as well, the different timelines they watch on the screen. As an overview, but they were interesting, though. They were quick and interesting. Unlike what they did in Oppenheimer, where they kept cutting to the guy's head and things flying around his head and whatever, and random gibberish. The stuff flows here a little better in that they you just see for a fraction of just a brief. Here's a decimated planet, Optera. Here's a decimated frame or a base or something. And they're going to talk about it now. Or 1 second, couple seconds, boom, there you are, go. Because you don't really go motion plastic robots. You kind of have to do your own thing. The end of the battle does seem pretty abrupt, but that's because it's you got to get done in 3 hours. Also, it's the whole 3-hour miniseries. It's all of it. Special preview, but it is the miniseries. We didn't put up a trailer because we figured you don't need a trailer. Just jump right into it. We could put up later 3 1-hour segments, but probably not going to because YouTube complains about double downloads of stuff, and may complain that the first hour is just the same video again, but slightly changed because there was 1 or 2 gonks that we didn't catch, but they really don't change the movie. You could imply that the gonks were part of the timeline being rejiggered on the planet. And yeah, we know that the Robotech Experience Force was supposed to have, there's generations in there, we know all that. To reiterate, Macross and Southern Cross and New Generation Space Climber Mats Pieta were not originally connected at all. And when they became Robotech in the U.S. in 1985, they just combined them together and redubbed them and added things that weren't there and people that weren't those people. They just changed the names around. That tradition is the same here. We have robots and things that show up that appear to be robots from different Transformer timelines that are in it, and their names are changed, and and the situation has changed because the Transformers changed it. Because the 2018 that's visited in the Space Bridge from 2046, back to 2016 that's visited in 2046. That has been altered. That's not the Robotech timeline because the Transformers are there, and they prevented the Zentradi War from happening in 2009 because they were there, and they're like, oh no, you don't need to fight them. In this one, they also encounter a space plague that strikes them in the 2020s, and and that also doubly messes them up. They try to build the SDF-1 and the SDF-2, and in Stranded on Macross from All Transformers Mush, the sequel to Space Bridge, and the Shared Hallucinations, the sequel to that, in the mush, 2021, I believe. They find out that the third battle fortress has been wrecked in the battle, and they have to rebuild it. So they rebuild it as the SDF-3A, and launch in 2025 in the story, not 2022 as they were intended to. They couldn't. They had to rebuild it. So it took them 3 years to rebuild it on the moon, now loose. So you have kind of the same events happening, but just a little later down the timeline, which is consistent with current timeline theories and time travel stories, like Strange New Worlds doing that, or Marvel doing that, or DC doing that. So we're doing it too. Also, Transformers used to be a Marvel property, so there you go. And now they're owned by Disney. But Transformers is not owned by Disney, but the Marvel property. Marvel switched over, yeah. So there's this weird connection between Paramount and Disney right there. Yeah. So yeah, we have a. It's not a cold. What happened is I went on a vacation thing up north. Really dry up there. Talked a lot. So voice is funky. Anyway, so we have the robots, the Robotech story here, as told in this story, is again another retcon, but it follows more closely the Macross, Frontier, and Delta backstory, which is kind of fun because I have seen the Delta movie. It kind of follows that. There's Macross 7 elements, the Proto-Devlin is mentioned. That all ties in. I like how it ties in this story. It was just a throwaway line a couple of times, but it actually works. In the original, it was a wraith in the original script. But Proto-Devlin was funnier, because then you could say, like, oh, it's the Protoculture Devil. Yeah, that's canon with Robotech, yeah. And to imply that the Invid, who were originally slug-like creatures that were uplifted, they call it uplifted now, but it didn't back then. They just said, oh, they were creatures that are energy beings and whatever. They didn't explain it, but the term that they use now in sci-fi is uplifting. So what do you take up? And we were doing that in Starcrackers too, but not so much in Distant Cousins. They implied it in Distant Cousins. They just didn't call it that. And Canary Space in Space Vanguards, some of our other stuff in the storybooks. It was called uplifting. It's when you take a species of animal or creature and you make it more humanoid and sentient. So the idea that the slug creatures who were the original Invid were uplifted into humanoid things and then beyond by the Masters is an interesting concept. It's like, how did the Masters do that? Were they a Cat 3 civilization that just figured out how to do that? It doesn't make sense in Space Vanguards. So Starcrackers, that the human race, being only Cat 1.5 and Cat 2 type civilization, would be able to do that, but they figured it out how to do that. They would have been higher up than that, but they weren't. But so what? The Masters are clearly more advanced than that. They're clearly a galactic power like the Decepticons and the Autobots, and they figured out how to do it. And also, it kind of matches up with the spark energy thing that Transformers have. They have a spark that was introduced in Beast Wars. However, they kind of retconned it back and said, oh, they all have sparks, going back to and then that was a thing they used in the lexicon, about 20 years ago, in 2002, the Unicron trilogy and all that, the Armada stuff, the spark. So what happens is the spark energy means that the Transformers' souls are basically similar to the Invid. And so what happened if the Transformers got there ahead of the SDF-3A because something went wrong with the fold system, and they get there 4 years earlier. They get there, and immediately the Invid invasion happened on them. Or actually, the invasion probably happened a little afterward. They were probably all there as factions on Tyrol, and then the timeline caught up with them. So maybe a year earlier, they went in and did stuff. And they mentioned some of the stuff that happened. They mentioned some of the wars. They mentioned Polyhex and Thranix and Tharx and some of the cities that are attacked in the story, indicating there was a big battle between the Autobots and Decepticons we didn't see while the fortress was on its way to Tyrol. And when it got there, it was already established that the Invid took over the the Invid had taken over the Decepticons, and the Masters also had uplifted technology, and the Masters, who also had the Wraiths themselves, they also had Wraiths, because they kind of do. The clone Wraith things. They took over the Autobots. So, the story of the Autobots and Decepticons, kind of like good guy Wraiths and bad guy Wraiths. Good angels, bad angels. Demons. Decepticons and demons. Angels and demons in space. Yeah. So you have that, and you have but they're not immortal. They can be beaten in the story, so they're not really angels and demons. But yeah, the idea of them, just, and the stories went together. The first couple stories we had were all about these Wraith characters. They were about these like creatures, trickster characters. The character of the kind of like nymphs and elves and pukas and Puck the Puck, as in Puck the trickster, or Loki's kind of things. They were very much messing with each other in the story. That was fun. The stories were about this Invid Regis lady tries to get her body back because she's still ethereal and floating around. She can attain physical form a few times, but they keep catching her because they also have the ability to catch her. And because they keep catching her and they keep trying to destroy her, but she keeps coming back together. So she'll assume a body and then they'll blow it up, basically. And then she has to get another one. And by the end, she gets a last one. It was the 6 they were building. She gets one of them. Presumably the other 5 went on and did something else. I think Ritter gets the other one. So there's Ritter and her. They have to get 2 of them, 6 bodies. Yeah, so Ritter gets one too. And he comes back. So yeah, so I think all 6 are accounted for, actually. If you think about it. The cons were building 6 frames. They wrecked a frame before they built 6 new ones, and so yeah, and some of the good guys got some of them to rebuild. Optimal Zor, who was injured off screen, and Beast Sor was apparently recreated and became Beast Sor from one of them, possibly, or some other one. I think he's another one. He's just another guy that was there because he was there earlier. Yeah, they weren't able to repair Grimes. We never saw Grimes, actually. We kind of did, though. There was a scene where there was a sort of a blue twin twist guy that was probably Grimes. It was supposed to be someone else, but it's probably him, the Transfector. Also, it's interesting that the Japanese, and this is a kind of a review of the Robotech thing, is what I thought of it. I'm thinking like, and we wrote it, so based on these lexicon stories. So I'm kind of like going over what's going on more in depth. So we have the Transtector idea is fun because in the Japanese continuity of the Japanese Transformer cartoons, they continued after the U.S. one, and the rebirth didn't happen over there. The final 4th season didn't happen. They had their own version of the 4th season where they go to Planet Master and they go visit the headmasters, and then they go on to Planet Pretender and they visit them, and they go on to, and they have the Master Force Autobots and the Breast Force and the Brain Masters, and they go on to do other things, Transformers Zone and God Master Force and all that. They like Master in the title. It sounds cool. Like Master. Also a fun show. Very strange. The Shop Factory rewrites of those. They're all gone from our collection, but back in the day, you could have watched them. We don't have them anymore. But the actors, when they would phonetically say transform, and then there's a dash after transform, the actor didn't know that he didn't need to say the dash. So there'd be transform, dash. They weren't running anywhere. He just was reading transform, dash on the page phonetically. It's kind of funny. Also, they had a habit of doing the Japanese Transformer Super Saiyan robot Saiyan Force thing, where the hero would be blazoned with light and imagery behind the hero as he's transforming, or and he would shout transform, or he would be I'm going to activate the gun, and he would tell the bad guy, I'm activating my boom beam blaster beam right now. And it's like he's telling the bad guy what he's going to do. He's telegraphing his. The bad guy would be like, okay, you're about to activate your boom beam blaster. Well, activate my shield. Paching, and yeah, so they would do that. The Transtector, though, sounds like Transtech Tor. So the city of Tor is mentioned. Transtech Tor. In this timeline, apparently the Transtech is also a sort of like a headmaster creature, humanoid creature. And apparently when they went to the master planet, the master people that are on the planet became some of the headmasters for the robots, and the target masters. It's also amusing that you never once see anybody operating an actual blaster except for Galvatron, who's playing the Regent to Regis. It's not supposed to be Galvatron, it's supposed to be the Regent Regis. It's kind of a nod to the two Galvatron brothers from Space Bridge and the other one. They were big Galvatron brothers. It's kind of that. So that's supposed to be. He becomes himself, sort of. Maybe he's two of the Transtectors from before. But he kind of wrecked his body shell, so. But yeah, it's funny. But yeah, so yeah, the Transtector, Transtect, and Transtech is in there. So there you go. Yeah, they knew about us before we even wrote our story. Well, actually, no, it's a coincidence. The Transtector is spelled differently, but we say it isn't in this word. A Transtech would have been what was after Beast Machines. It would have been, it would have been after Beast Machines. It would have been called Machine Wars here. It would have been Transtech over there. And it would have been, the Truck Monkey would have been literally Truck Monkey. So Cheetor would have been like Cheetor Race Car. Stuff like that. It would have been cool, but they never did it, but we did it. We knew what it was going to be. And we did our own version with our own toys. And that was in production between 2001 and 2009. Well, late 2008. They all came out on video, and then they went up on YouTube around the mid 2012 or so. Yeah, they all went up on YouTube, so got to see them. So we did the 4th season of Beast Wars at Transtech, and Transformers meets Robotech is what we called it. And this is the spiritual sequel to that. But go ahead and watch the original. It's awesome. It still holds up. In this one, it's a different timeline, so we can play around with names. At one point, Alison Strawberg will be appearing, because in this timeline, she didn't die. Jack Strawberg died, instead of her. So he's still alive. She's still alive. Or she's been recreated, because it could be that, too. Because there was a Space Bridge, they brought her back as the Alicon. So maybe it's just that they figured out how to revive her. Put her in a Transtector, possibly. That'd be kind of cool. So we get to see that later on. We get to see some T.L. Aaron stuff, which is fun. Even though originally a lot of his stuff was like super violent and cruel, and we had to like change a bunch of the violent acts and stuff because YouTube won't accept it. But it could keep some of the edge in there. There's the edges in this one too a little bit. It's not going to get any worse than PG-13, so why 14? But yeah, this one writer who wrote a lot of the fanfic stuff. He said of his regular website, don't use any of those, and you can't actually download them. But on lexicons, the older ones go ahead, and lexicons, there were some older ones on there, and we liked some of them. So the next two stories are really mostly him. His saga, it was the Talomsky sagas. So you get to see there is no animated version of the Talomsky sagas and the Doppelgangers out there, but there will be, which is okay. Yeah, it's kind of famous, our version. It's probably not going to be, entirely accurate. It's got Transformers and Robotech in it. But yeah, so, and it fits somehow with the books. Like the original, because we couldn't have the Sentinels figures, they didn't make action figures. They didn't make a show. In 1987, they made one movie. It was an hour long. And after Robotech the movie failed, because it was Megazone 2-3 with bits of the Sun Southern Cross thrown in, didn't work. And history apocrypha says that, it only aired in Texas in one theater. No, it didn't. It aired elsewhere because Mark's Cards and I, under his real name, of course. We saw it in the theater, so it did air here too. It didn't just air in Houston, Texas. It aired in San Jose, California in the 80s, and we saw it. So we did see it in California, in the Bay Area. And remember going like, what the heck was this? And it was like bad. It was in the theaters, yeah, so it wasn't just Texas. It probably aired in a couple other cities too. It was probably in New York, it was probably in San Francisco, LA. It probably aired in other places. I mean, it was a movie. It's Robotech the movie. It just wasn't, they didn't know what they were doing. They should have just imported Macross Do You Remember Love and played that. Because they did eventually put a downplayed version of that. They should have just done that. Yeah, put that in theaters. And they did eventually put that in theaters here, but I don't think the Harmony Gold people did. I think Studio New did. Because we had a Japantown back then, which is now the convention center and a bunch of other stuff downtown San Jose. It's been kind of erased, but what's left of it is FanimeCon. What's left of Japantown and downtown, and when they have FanimeCon at the McHenry Center. What's left of it, they show stuff like that there at the convention. But back in the day, when they didn't have the convention center, when they just had the San Jose State one, they had the older theaters, and they would show anime movies when we were in college, and they showed Do You Remember Love, and they showed Macross Plus, and they showed Cowboy Bebop the movie back in the day, the Guyver movie and the live action one, Lensman, a bunch of movies that they showed the Japanese version with the, and of course they weren't distributed here so much. Some of them later were. Macross Plus was for a while, but yeah, a lot of them weren't because the studios were like, no, we're just going to show them at this art house theater. Yeah, don't know. Yeah, it's not going mainstream. It's just art house. They would show them in the art house theater. Sure, Pirated Productions was born out of the art house theater. So yeah. Nice. Anyway, so yeah, so there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie that has. I'm gonna get some water. Yeah. I would think the movie was a mess. So yeah, the Sentinels thing never happened, and they put it on video. And there were a lot of conventions back then. There was like a Star Trek convention. It was back when Creation Cons, even though it had nothing to do with religion. It was just called Creation Cons. They even played at the Masonic Temple a bunch of times, so it wasn't religious. In San Francisco as well. But these convention thing used to do all the conventions. There'd be like 3 every summer, and in the 80s and 90s. There would be, because Star Trek was really big for 18 years between 87 and 2005. So there would be all kinds of conventions all the time. The actors from the 3 different Star Trek shows would go there, and the newer ones, and they would go there. So San Jose was big. They went beyond the convention center. They built other convention centers at that time. They built the Shark Stadium, which became the SAP Center. Yes, SAP Productions. Same idea. Wasn't us. It was just my nieces and nephews deciding that sounds like a cool name for our group too. Yeah, they kind of stole it. But no, it was okay because they were just kidding around. They were kids. SAP. I called it. No, you have to call it SAP One Productions if you're going to put that on the Brown Productions website. Make sure it's not the same people. We're obviously not related to the SAP Center. Okay. Yeah, well, no, we're not. I know you want to say that, but no, you're not. You've just been there. You were fans. It'd be like calling it Fanime Center. It's like, no, can't do that. Don't do that. But yes, you're fans. You weren't there. You just went there to be fans. You weren't in that. Anyway, so yeah, it's the same thing here. So they built a convention center in McHenry Center. They expanded it in the 2000s. They built a newer convention center down there and changed everything. They built hotels where the Japantown used to be. They and a bunch of other stuff. It's changed over, but the remnant of it is Fan-O-Meikon. And sometimes Silicon Valley Comic Con, which then there was Big Wow as well. That was a big convention. That became Silicon Valley Comic Con, but then the Comic Con people got mad, and they were like, "You can't call it Comic Con because that's San Diego, that's us. In New York, you can't do it. For not really Comic Con, you can't call it that." They changed it to Silicon after the Cillian thing because they figured the Cillian guy is probably not, I said, no, that's all right. You can do that. Am I going to get any royalties? No, I'm not. All right. I'm not. They just came up with a similar name. That's all. Same thing there. We're not related to Adam Savage in any way. We have a news convention, but we're not. Yeah, I remember when they did the Comic-Con thing. That was the first one in 2017. There was one, and they had a thing about you have to have an Apple product on you in order to get in. Somebody was kidding, of course. I had an iPhone. Without the iPhone, Apple product. Okay, can go in. Oh yes. So yeah, the Robotech thing. This first story is kind of amazing how everything went together, gelled in this 3 hour. It was very quick, 3 hours. It was like it just flies by, even though there's like 3 battle scenes in the whole thing, but it flies through, and you're just like, oh, this is very interesting. Huh? And the bad guys, it kind of seems like a non-plus battle where they're thinking things out instead of fighting each other, which is kind of fun. And it's like the bad guys have their own plans while the battle is going on, and they want to do this other thing with the other Invids, and they want to go find the Regis, find her a body, and bring her into corporealism, and the Apollonicus helps them. He's originally supposed to be a Quintesson, and there was another guy that was going to be in there too. There was another Quintesson, but I decided no, it's just him. There were some changes during production where these other characters should do that. And yes, Cabell does walk out of the story, just leaves after like he's not in there in the last half hour. He's just gone. After he insults Beast Sword Grimlock, basically, just walks away. But he says, "I'm out of here," so maybe he'll show up again later. We're presuming that the fleet can go inside the 5-mile-long SDF-3 thing, and that they can all go inside, and the SDF, they can even park the Autobot ship in there, because it's really big. I mean, they can just go where they need to go. Presuming that. It's really big. So. They destroyed the ship 3 or 4 times during the Sentinels books, and so it would look different. And the space jump of 5 years is consistent with the space jump of 5 years from the first book, from the Sentinels books. Otherwise, it doesn't follow the book so much. It does have a space plague that happens in the middle of the series, but I decided to have it happen earlier, and to have the energy field thing of the Invid thing affecting them and the main crew directly, because that made more sense. That would be affecting them while they're there, and playing mind games with them was more interesting than... Didn't want to just have a space shootout thing. I wanted it to be a psychological thriller in space. So, yeah, no space, no, not so much of pew, 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 but more like, they're messing with their mind, they've done something, yeah, and it's linear, it's that each episode, which is roughly, well, let's see, if I look back at the episode pages here, the first one, The Arrival, was roughly the first 26 minutes of the story, and it lines up just about first half an hour. The Arrival was when they get there. That's the Kal Kat one. And then Distant Early Warning was the next one, and by Phantom, and it was 34 minutes, so it was a little longer. It was came to about 40 minutes in the story, and that was the one setting up the regent wanting to the Hedonite regent wanted to get his invid body back. So the regent's forces were looking for it. Originally, it was going to be like the Talarians and the Transformers thing, and they were going to go to that planet Talaria, but not in this version. I just put the colony of Talaria on. Yes, and that one guy was clearly supposed to be Rumble originally, but no, it wasn't Rumble from Transformers. But it wasn't. I said it's a Talarian colony. They went and visited the Master. Also, it was kind of fun to imply that the Gobatron was in the same system, and that because it's Centaurus and Transformer Cybertron was in the system, so they're familiar with it, and the Transformers got there quicker because their full system was messed up on the Robotech ship. It's not going to happen in the other 2 episodes. I decided that on the train ride up to Roseville that in order for the other 2 episodes to line up with the timeline, they have to be back to Earth by around 2030 or 2031 in this timeline, because otherwise it doesn't match up, or at least they need to be to this other planet by 2031, so it kind of lines up. But yeah, and then 15 years later for the finale really wouldn't make sense. So yeah, even though in Robotech it kind of is, it's kind of like 2012 to 2040. But yeah, there's another generation in there just to do a generation, and maybe it will a little bit. Maybe by the time we get to Terra, it is 2040. We'll probably. So we'll see. So there's a couple of weeks went by between these episodes. So then the next episode that we used, next chapter, was the Distant Early Warning, and that was Phantom that wrote that. Yeah, that was the whole discovery of the Regis as well. Then there was Cavern of Temptation, where they mess with Optimo and make him think things are going on. And Dwayne M. And it was only about 21 minutes, but it came to about 25. Then there's Trials of Leadership, which was 25 minutes, came to about 30. That was, we were introduced to the dinosaur guy, and we were introduced to the whole behind the scenes. What the bad guys, Decepticon Invid, figured is they can't defeat them by capturing Optimo necessarily, because they tried that in the other story, and then go on to the next one, and the Autobot commander, the Autobot Primus guy, comes and helps them in that one, and it's like, well, they have the idea of they want the Matrix. She wants the Matrix, so basically she so she tries to get the Matrix, but Optimo Zor, who's kind of like Prime, gives it to it. And he's supposed to be Scout. He's supposed to be the son of Draconis Prime. Yeah, and Max's card is their kid. Yeah, from the first one. It's their son. So, yeah, yes. And Maximus Carna is a male. Yeah, they built him. Yeah, so it's supposed to be the son. And then it makes sense. But yeah, they're robots, so they can build other robots. Gender is not a problem for them. They can just do whatever. They can just build themselves into something else. Hence the shapeshifter Transformers. And then we have so we have that, and we have Primus show up, and we have this like mystical thing. Then we have Challengers to the Throne and Trials of Leadership are both by Roy. So Challengers to the Throne introduces these 2 stories are about, well, Beast Sora is tempted and tricked by the Queen because he's kind of slow, and Primal's wounded at some point between the 2 episodes in battle. The Optimo is wounded because each episode takes place several days, if not a week, after the other episode. So each one of these is so between Trials of Leadership and Challengers to the Throne, there was apparently at least a week that went by. Well, the Decepticons were also building the space frames I mentioned and all that. And then trying to find Apollonicus and all that happened. Guiding Hand is the finale. 22 minutes came to about a half an hour. But if you add them all up, it's 3 hours. It's 180 minutes. 3 hours, right? 180 minutes. Because 1 hour is 60 minutes, and then times 3 is 3 hours. Yeah. 180 minutes. It was 144 story, but it was 180 minutes. So Guiding Hand basically has the sort of ending battle. It all kind of is connected, though. It all works. There's old Flint and the Joes don't get to do much. There's only four GI Joes in it that we've met so far. There's old Flint, Marissa Fairborn. There's Jack Baker and Karen Penn who are acting as GI Joes, even though they're supposed to be Robotech people from Robotech. A funny backstory about Jack Baker. I was reading of Jack Baker and Karen Penn from the Sentinels. Is apparently he was intended to be the Mark character from Robotech the movie. And when they were producing, they were going to write the Sentinel story, and they wrote 60 episodes, but they didn't put them out. And they wrote this one, the pilot, and that's it. They only filmed the pilot. They basically decided, we can't use that character. We're going to have to change the name. Because the movie didn't do well, so it's not Mark, it's someone else. It kind of doesn't make sense that it would be him. But also the weird thing is that he is apparently B.D. or T.L. Edwards' nephew. So he's supposed to be his nephew. It's kind of odd. I think it would have been cooler if they had just said it was Min-Mei. I mean, if you're going to do that, say it's Min-Mei's little brother who disappears from the story. Jason disappears from the story entirely. Robotech is never mentioned again, and he's like, it's like that Mr. Cunningham kid from Happy Days, just never mentioned ever again. What happened to Min-Mei's little brother? Could have been him. Yeah, why not? Yeah, but they didn't do that. Also, in the story, we imply that Min-Mei isn't with them. We don't know what happened to her, but she's not with them, and that she had a fling with Lynn Kyle, and they had a child, and Rick Hunter adopted it. Something must have happened to her. So maybe she went on the Mega Road too, went off and got lost. Yeah, that's possible. So Roy is trans, and we haven't met her yet, though. I don't think we do end up meeting her. So them in the story, but we do end up meeting other ones. We end up meeting Autobot and Decepticon ones that are like that. But Hit Ritter is one as well. So, but there's other ones. There's a good guy one too. I think there's a good guy. Pretty sure it's a good guy. Yeah. So that was my view. I guess breakdown analysis. Well, the Robotech thing, I don't know how much more you'll see of Jack and Karen, but hopefully. It is weird that you don't see them in person until half an hour into the movie, but you see only the robot form of them as transdectors for the Veritex. You only see that. And then you see them in human form, and you're like, oh, okay, that's who that is. Roadblock is there too, and Old Flint, and Marissa Fairborn. And in the original Transformers, Marissa Fairborn was supposed to be Captain Marissa Fairborn, and she was supposed to be the daughter of Flint Fairborn in Lady J, or Scarlet. No, yeah, Lady J. And that didn't make any sense. They didn't add that right. They made the show. Unless they had a kid before G.I. Joe started, that we didn't know about, but that they weren't even dating in the show, really, not too much. They were sort of hanging out, but yeah. So, Lady J, yeah. So it's like when did that happen? It's 2005. G.I. Joe ended in 85, and then didn't jump to 2005. So, Transformers is supposed to be in 2005. That would make her under 18 when she was 19 at most, 20 at most, when Transformers started. So because she wasn't in the 90s G.I. Joe show. So she wasn't born yet there either. So if she was born in 1991 after that show, then she'd be 18. So she couldn't be a captain in the future at all. She wouldn't be a captain yet. She'd be a cadet. So yeah, that wouldn't make sense. She'd be a cadet. Unless the implication is that Flint Fairborn had a kid we just never saw, who was a kid during G.I. Joe, was maybe 10. And then later on in the Transformers, she's 30. But it doesn't match up at all to her to be a captain. Even if it's an army captain, which is lower ranked than a Navy captain. She's an Army captain. But still, that doesn't... Yeah, they kind of played her like a Navy captain. They had her flying around in a spaceship. Space Force type. Yes, but yeah, they ripped that off from Canary Space and Distant Destinies as well. Space Forces, yeah. That's what we called the Federation in our stuff. What the heck? But yeah, so yeah, because we couldn't call it the Federation because it would have been like, oh, Star Trek. Yeah, we can't do that. Robotech, the UN Spacey. There's a little clip in the beginning of the show with the UN Space. It's a joke. But also, yeah, it was fun. It was good. A lot of I went into the thing. It took a couple of weeks to do. And they go on to parts 2 and 3, and yeah, sure, get them done. But it is going to be a hot week this week, so maybe not this week, but we'll see. It's a heat wave coming on, But yeah, there's going to be a lot more of the human characters in the next 2. And we'll see whether the doppelgangers, what they're up to. They're supposed to be like transtectors that have escaped and invids that have escaped. Also, there's a nod to the Sisira from the invid in there. At one point, the invid is defeated by... The invid queen is defeated by the ghost or the wraith or the proto-devlin of one of her offspring. And she screams her name, Sierra, no respect for my offspring. And that's a nod to her. From Sierra from Robotech. She's a protoculture devlin. So they are the shadow. So the gag is that they're the children of the shadow and the children of the light. And they think that they're the children of light because they're energy beings. But they're not. They're actually the children of the shadow. So yeah, the bad guys think they're the illumination of the universe, but superior to the universe because they're that, but they're not. They're actually bad guys, which is why the Invid lady was afraid of the children of the shadow, because they were actually, if they actually showed up, then they'd be like, wait a minute, she's actually a bad guy. Yeah, then they'd be like, oops, we're hypocrites. Yes, in space hypocrites. They're actually the bad guys, but yeah, they clearly were. But yeah, and Miria's CO in the story, because she would have one. The Zentradi lady, and I didn't name Hope either, but the Zentradi lady, Celeria, who shows up in it, joins the Decepticons. So I wonder what happens to her in the next one. We'll find out. She micronized Celeria there. Originally was not. It was a Transformer. But I decided that should be a human. That would be kind of cool. She just has a Robotech Transtector. Yeah, she's actually Min-May's boss. Well, Miria's boss. But Miria would then be promoted, I guess. 70 some Zentradi died. Apparently, they said hundreds originally, but hundreds were knocked down. Maybe they counted all of them and determined some of them were dead and revived 30 or so of them, a little over 30 of them. So they weren't not all dead, it's just some of them. Maybe they fixed some of them. They repaired them, so that still works. There's a few gonks, but I'm not going to go back and fix the 3-hour thing downloaded. It's not worth it fixing it. They're nothing really. There's always something a little off there. It'll never be perfect. So, at least there's nothing like a drop off of an embarrassing moment that at least there's no black dark space in the middle of it somewhere. It's all there. It's fine. It's cool. So, yeah, that's my review, I guess, thus far. I'm trying to stick on target topic here. Yeah, Phantom and Stormy, and there's a lot of T.L. Aarons in this one. He thought originally that Stormy, who comes up next, the next series, is going to object because her name is similar to Stormy Daniels. But no. She's not going to, no, she doesn't mind. She's like, no, nobody's going to make that connection at all. At all. So it's not her. and there's Sheba, who's one of them. Oh, and Raksha did the last one. The Guiding Hand was a Raksha story. And that was fun at the Fanime, Mark's Cards, and I went to Fanime. And Raksha doesn't do Transformer stuff anymore. She's a snake tamer. So she was there with a snake. So I got to see that. She's going to be there with the snake. So that was kind of cool. We had like a scene with the infamous Alt Transformers Mush character, Raksha, who thought of Night Racer. Back in the day, she was there. So that was cool. But it wasn't about Transformers. It was about her snakes. Okay. I think she goes, it's okay. It's kind of fun. The snakes. Excellent. And even though I made a joke about it eating the guy, John's all, oh, it's not going to eat the tamer. He's not going to like that, saying that. I was like, he knows that I'm kidding. Come on. Of course he's not going to eat the tamer. Come on. Anyway, so yeah, the snake tamer. Which would make her a proto-devil. She thinks the Decepticons are good guys. I can kind of tell. Yeah, they must revitalize Upterra through the cleansing. Arr! Sounds kind of fascist of them. Fascist, evil, bad guy dudes. Just robot. Maybe the alt-right will get mad. They'll be like, no, do you make fun of fascists through the Decepticons? They kind of were, though. Kind of space Nazis. They kind of were. It's a little bit of imperialist bad guy dictator thrown in there for good measure. The Decepticons are not supposed to be heroic. They're either generally cowardly or after each other, and their twisted sense of honor is completely backward. Where they think it's honorable to like stab each other and run away and stuff. That's how they think. So a place like the Invid Cave or the Wrath Planet is going to mess with them, their ambition, and make them believe they're in charge of everything, because that's what it would do. And yeah, they connected it to the Wrath Planet and the other stories in the Mush. Because the people playing the Mush were like a writing room almost, and they were like, oh, it's a cool idea to do this like schizophrenic sort of borderline personality thing with the Decepticons thinking things are happening that aren't there and whatever. And imagining their different personalities or wraiths or whatever. But also they can have like ghosts coming in because they're like ghost stories and whatever. We can have aliens come in and possess them because that's cool. So all these different things are happening. It's almost magic, but it isn't because it's technology. Like one of the Autobots points that out that it's I think Rick Hunter points out that it's just technology. It's a kind of misquoting Arthur C. Clarke. Any sufficient technology would be any sufficiently advanced technology would be indistinguishable from magic, which is the Arthur C. Clarke quote. Which means that like, okay, if they're that advanced, it's going to look like magic, but it's just that they're so advanced that they figured it out. Now, how can you fight something like that? Their own hubris destroys them. They keep mentioning that frequently in the episode. Their own hubris will destroy them. Not realizing it's actually the Decepticons' hubris that destroys them. Because they're all, we don't want to do this anymore. We want to go to this other planet where it's easier to take over. So we're going to leave. So their whole motivation is like completely changed around as a result of meeting the Regis and meeting Apollonicus and meeting then Ritter. And going like, wait a minute, do we even want to do this anymore on this planet? This might be more fun on Hadon. Let's go there. And the humans think that they won because of the hubris thing and the build up and the whole thing. And the humans think they won the battle and they don't know why. But it's just because they gave up. The bad guys gave up. They're like, you know what we're going to do? We're going to just give up. Go to the next planet. It's more fun. And actually, even though it's part of an original story thing, it originally had nothing to do with Robotech. These people were familiar with Robotech the Sentinels because these stories kind of copy those books. enough that it's like similar. So these stories were chosen because they were similar. The second book of the Robotech, the Sentinels books thing, when they leave Tyrol to go to another planet, that's kind of what happens with the Invid. They kind of decide we don't we're tired of having the Sentinels fighting us. We're just going to go to the next planet. Go take over there. That's kind of what happens in the book. So it's like, wait a minute. So it's in here. So we're like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. So yeah, they kind of but it works because you can't like it's a sci-fi trope. You can't have your enemies destroy everybody because that's beast machines and it doesn't work. You can't have and vis-a-vis, you can't have your heroes take over the whole planet and decide that they're in charge because that would also be boring. Because you can't do anything with that. If they actually manage to win, or if the bad guys manage to win, it's the other way around. You know, if they win, then it doesn't. Yeah, so you want to have an equilibrium where both sides of the war decide the war is pointless. Let's leave. They could also make an allusion to Afghanistan and Iraq, the Iraq and Afghanistan war there too. They can make that allusion if they want to. But it's not really there, but they could. I mean, it was written in 2003, so it was a little before that was actually over. These episodes are really old. So yeah, it would have been, if it's like Afghanistan, then it's like they decided to let the Taliban take over. So they decided to let the doppelgangers take over on the planet and do their own thing. Well, they took off because they didn't care anymore. Because it was untenable. The war was untenable, which it kind of was in the beginning when they got there. So in the story, in the episode on the planet. Yeah, they didn't really know who was in charge because it's a sci-fi trope where the heroes would land on a planet and talk to the leader. Why would they talk to the leader? That makes sense. Have them talk to a leader on the planet. The aliens are going to come to a planet. They're going to talk to the leader. So yeah, this is a sci-fi guy. Probably overthinking it, but this is my thoughts on the episode, and it's a review kind of the episode, and history and backstory, and I tried to not ramble about other things. It was only related to Robotech, and only to the stories. These lexicon stories, if you're interested, can be found on Transformers Lexicons archive, and under the name, you can find them all except the Kal Kat one. You can find Distant Early Warning, Cavern of Temptation, Trials of Leadership, Challengers to the Throne, and Guiding Hand, all there. You can find the other ones too. You can find Darkness Visible, Blood and Water, City Under Fire, and Joy's Ride from the next episode, and Chocolate Covered Strawberries, that sounds ominous, and Tasty, Countdown, Summer Storm, and Prisoner of Destiny, which also sounds tasty. And kinky, but it's not. Anyway, so Prisoner of Destiny. Sounds like an exploitation movie from the 70s. Possibly involving a jackbooted lady named Elsa or something. You are a prisoner of destiny. And of course, I am destiny. And she's got like long blonde hair, but it's tied up in a severe bun. And she's like one of those I Dream of Jeannie buns, but it's kind of down like this. And she's like, it's all severely like pushed back in a bun. Yeah, and she has like gigantic protuberances, and ew, and she's kind of hairy as well. There's blonde hair everywhere. It's kind of funny. She's like a butch and strong as well. Because you figure she would be if her name is Destiny. The men respect her in the camp. Or else should get them. Okay, that's not going to happen in the movie, but I just picture a title like that. City Under Fire. Joy's Ride could be Joyride, I'm assuming. A character named Joy in it, I guess. Or they're being cute with the name. Trial of Leadership. Yeah, kind of Trials of Leadership and Challenger to the Throne kind of go together. This Early Warning and Cabinet of Temptation went together. Guiding Hand kind of goes with all those. So, yeah. So these were about different leadership things. On the planet Tyrol, the moon of Phantoma, Saturn-like planet. They said a Jupiter-like planet in this one, but I said a Saturn-like planet makes a little more sense. It looks like a Saturn in the cartoons. That's a Saturn. Probably a large Neptune. So it's not exactly the planet from they ripped off in Avatar. They ripped off Phantoma in Avatar. That Avatar, James Cameron. They ripped off Phantoma. It's basically that planet. So the Navi planet is basically that planet. But that's, neither here nor there. But yeah, they also ripped off Thundercats and Fern Gully and other things. At least we don't have blue Thundercats. And actually, jerky blue Thundercat, like leader guy. When you think of that movie, you think they were making it accurate, and then they added extra fingers to the characters, and it was like, why would they design the Avatar to have extra DNA that's human? Makes sense. Anyway, but in this one, the DNA is cyber DNA, so. Also, yeah. I think probably the funnest scene was probably the one with the yeah. I like the middle. I kind of like the part where they come together. Two Galvatrons are arguing in there. That's kind of fun. Oh, I have my own city. It's glorious. Ah, the other one's like, no. What do you mean you cleansed it? Ah, that's a hint to Beast Machines in there. That scene. The Beast Machine's Megatron. It's really obvious that's who that's supposed to be. It's a Beast Machine scene. He's not like, yes, I have purified the planet. Ah, which he wanted to do in Beast Machine. Yes, we're partly responsible for Beast Machine. Oh no. Well, one of the old friends the day was, let's do one with the Decepticons where the Beast, the Predacons are in charge. Maybe one episode. No, the whole show. No, it didn't work so well doing that. Because you don't do that. You don't have the bad guys take over everything. It's like, it's dreary and dark. But yes, so here we are. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of T.L. Aaron stuff in there. T.L. Aaron's was, in case you didn't know, was one of the authors of one of the Mush episodes. He wrote one of the one with Ultra Magnus having a secret admirer in Mush. I think it was season 2. You can go back and look that one up. Secret admirer. Yeah, that one. Yeah, so where he had a secret admirer, and he was really annoyed because Ultra Magnus is such a stickler for protocol and marching around and stuff, and jackboots and stuff, and he must be order and everything. It'd be funny if he had a secret admirer that had a crush on him. Aaron's was very clever. That one was funny. That one was actually not violent though. That was just fun. And that one was and that one ends with him discovering that his secret admirer is someone that you only could realize was the end. It would have to be his self from the other timeline. It's literally him from the other timeline. So I love you. I love myself. Because she's so in protocol. The only person that would really love him uncontrollably would be another Ultra Magnus from another timeline. So in this one, that's kind of turned on its head in the double Galvatron scene, where they're like, he loves the idea, but he didn't quite do it. And the love triangle is present in this. The love triangle. There's 2 love triangles. There's 2 love triangles going on. There's at least among the robots. There's 6 Zor, Tall Spike, and Optimozor. They're the triangle, and the Triumvirate as well, and the Triumvirate, as well as Regent and Regis, and now Ritter, who shows up at the end to be the third wheel. It's really obvious that they are going to be the third wheel there in the triangle. We haven't met the triangle until the last act, and then the Decepticon triangle, Triumvirate. She arrives. They arrive. Like, oh, there's okay, yeah. Because it wasn't the Starscream archetype, and it wasn't Muck, and it wasn't Blitzwing. It wasn't Junkheap, who is playing Scrap. It's Junkheap. That's if you want to get that one. Also, the Slipstream looking one is a Transformers. It's a version of Thrust from. It's Thrust. It's just a G2 colored Thrust from Amazon. You can go and get one. They're on Amazon. All the toys are from pretty much from Amazon. The Robotechs aren't though. The Veritechs were Jetfires. Yeah, they were built special for the movie. They're not coming out anywhere. We can't sell merch. Or no merch. We're not selling merch. And 2 or 3 of them broke during productions. That's lovely. Including the Super Ostrich one. And the Dana and Bowie thing. Oh, and we got another. There's going to be another Bowie in the next one. We've got a hold of a. We've got a hold of a better Bowie. You'll see. Not giving it away yet. Better Bowie than the one that was there. Didn't work. And the characters should. Part of the ages don't age up and match up well because Dana Sterling. It would only be 8 years later when Dana Sterling's in Robotech in the Masters saga. So that would only be in the original from 2022 from 2012. No, 2022 to 2030. So that the Master Saga has to be in 2030. So she has to go home by 2030. Get back there when she's 18 and save the universe. So as she was just barely like a cadet, even though they made her a lieutenant. Again, another captain-lieutenant thing. That doesn't make sense. They wouldn't do that. She wouldn't be captain. The Army Southern Cross. It was a different lady in the Japanese one, though. It wasn't Dana. Some other lady. And Marie LaBelle was a different lady. All the other ones were different. Yeah, and there were the Zor Lords. Yeah, so Optimo, Zor, and other Zor. Yeah. So the Zors, the different Zor wraiths, became different Transformers, like Optimo Zor and 6 Zor. And Remy as well. Remy stayed humanoid. She stayed. Rem stayed Remy. She's also trans, so she's the other hero, Remy. They keep calling her he or she because she's both, and she looks like Black Widow because it's in the Black Widow action figure. But yeah, there's some G.I. Joe action figures in there too. But yeah, there are. That's the movies. Channing Tatum. Channing Tatum. I always get that mixed up. And the other ones. Yeah, but yeah. So yeah. And yeah, I know the Flint figure is a General Hawk, but I just said it was Flint. The G.I. Joe's going, that's General Hawk, come on. Oh. He's got a little hawk on there. It's the wrong guy. I know, but I didn't care. So yeah, I rambled on for a long time about this one, but besides the after show thing on the first episode, just in case you want to know about it. Well, anything else? Give away anything else about the triangles? Are there any human triangles? Well, not really. Not really. Max and Lisa and Rick, I guess. A little bit of Myriad, aren't it? But that's more like a quadra. That's not a triangle. That's a square. They're just square. And Cowpoke was like, well, of course Max Sterling wouldn't be good at raising his kids and try to pawn it off on a Transformer, because he's a pilot. You don't know anything about that. He's totally a fighter pilot who likes to go out and be perfectionist about flying the planes, space planes and stuff. He doesn't know how to do that stuff. Well, how would he learn that stuff? How would Muriel learn that stuff? Wouldn't being pregnant freak her out? But no, she apparently liked it. Would it even work? Genetically, really? Their DNA is similar, but still, aliens. It was funny in that one scene where we put it in there where Dana and Bowie show up in the Veritech and she's all, Dana says, "But mother, you were young once." And she goes, "No, I wasn't. I was maturated in a clone vat." Which, yeah. Ha ha ha. That's Robotech, okay? Because they didn't try to work clones. Maturated in a clone vat. It's kind of like that Borg thing. But even the Borg was inconsistent. They would have like baby ones. So, I don't know. But yeah. And they'd have adolescent ones and stuff. It just kind of doesn't work. But yeah, maturated in a clone. There were a couple of good jokes in it. Yeah, it was generally funny. Generally fun story. 3 hours. Yeah. I quite enjoyed it. Yes. So. Anything else? Well, also you can watch on the channel the making of, and making of the story. Kal and Kal Kat. It's obviously just me, and also making of the moon and ship footage and stuff. Mention of the ships having been the genesis of the space carrier thing going back to like years ago. With Uncle Bill from Duluth, when I was a kid, he was a boat builder. He built model boats, and out of wood, like balsa and basswood. Built fantastic model barges and boats and things. And as a kid, being naive and probably 9 or 10, I figured he could just build anything with the boat kit. I didn't get that there was like kits and he's following a plan, blueprint. He wasn't really doing just his own thing to be like generally artsy. He was actually following a plan to make it look like a realistic looking. You could put it in a movie and it would look like a really good model in the movie, and they would not be convinced that it wasn't, a model boat. It would look realistic. They were great. They're in the museum over there in Duluth, and especially the barge thing. That could be in a movie. You wouldn't know that it was a model if they lit it right. It was amazing. So I was all like, "Oh, you should build an aircraft carrier for me because I like Robotech." So I must have been 15 because Robotech had already started. So he didn't even know what that was. So. SDF3 Robotech, yeah. Because I have this toy right here with the Robotech. You build this, It's like, no, I can't build that. No. I just can't. I don't have the plans for that toy to build that. It's too complicated. Yeah, have your Transformers? I must have been 15. I was 15. But yes, no, can't do that. But yeah, it wasn't going to happen. Build a Transformer, yeah, but you can do that. Learn how to do that. It was just like, yeah, and then I kind of had to. So I started to build the Cartas, the cardboard robots and stuff. And the JWS cat isn't just for John Williams' cat, KTS cat. It was also William, as in Bill, Uncle Bill's JWS cat. Yeah, Big Glinsky. There was also references to Glinsky in there, so it's kind of cool. But I built this aircraft carrier. I built the carrier. I made it lacquered over in wood and everything. And lacquered it 3 layers and attached to the back some styrofoam, and was gonna like float it in the city pool, which would have been a bad idea. Probably would have sank immediately. And then I rebuilt it for Carta 2. So Carta 1 was 86. Carta 2 was just all cardboard. It was hollow in the inside. Yeah, and then my STF3 model, it broke. Jim Tacon crushed it by accident. We were wrestling in the bed. He fell off the bed and it crushed it. And then I threw it in the ivy, and then it ended up. Some kid found it in the ivy with the stalks broken off, brought it to Goodwill, and then later on we went to Goodwill like a week later, and there it was. So I bought it back. And then I brought it over to my dad, who was an engineer, a radio engineer and ex-mayor. He looked at it and said, "I think we can fix it. Let's go to the hobby shop." And Because even though Uncle Bill didn't know how to do it, get an engineer to help you build it. So he went to the hobby shop, Sheldon's Hobbies, and there was this is like years later too. It's like years later. It was like a couple of years later. It was, and after Macross Do You Remember Love? So it was probably 88, 89. So it was a little later. Yeah, it was like later in high school because Broken Up it appeared broken up for a while in other stuff like Trans 1990 and stuff like this. So it was around, and then it was rebuilt, and it was around and rebuilt. So it was all messed up. So before, yeah, it must have rebuilt it before Trans 2. It was the SDF 1. So I wanted to make it look like the Do You Remember Love ship, and I showed Dad some pictures of what the ship Do You Remember Love looked like. Late 90s. It's not late 90s, I think it was. And it's all, well, we can go to Sheldon's Hobbies, get some plastic and some balsa around the edges, and build new stocks for it, and use the plastic parts cut from polyurethane to reattach the stocks to the guns and give it its guns back. So we did. We rebuilt it and painted it up and rebuilt its arms and painted them up, and it looked like the Do You Remember Love SDF 1 that you saw in SDF 1/SDF 3 that you saw in Transtech. So Dad designed the model for that movie. So yeah, it has since disintegrated into dust and was thrown away just a few weeks ago. But it was completely there was no fixing it at this point. It was disintegrated. I did keep the sequel one that was built, the SDF 3 from Transtech 2 and 3. That was in this movie. It's sort of a psych scene with a pan over to the moon base, and there's the SDF 3 model from back in the day. And it looked really good, except for the screws sticking out of the top that were holding it together. And then it turns over to this big, beautiful thing that's a third and a half longer, and it's just this thing we built right here that's next to me, SDF, the full-on 2022, 2023 model here. 2023, late 2022 model. The full-on SDF 3 with lights and patterns all over it and stuff, because, yeah, since I built I built several balsa starships since then, from the 2000s on. I learned how to do that. I even learned how to use the Dremel and all that other stuff. I didn't use the Dremel too much on this. I didn't really use that stuff on this. I kind of used it by hand and did other stuff. It was more of a by hand thing, gluing things together that were already cut. I didn't need to draw. Same thing with the Chimera ships. I used the Chimera ships, though. I used the bottom primary hulls of the Chimera ships turned upside down as the space sets and the moon base sets. And in the other scene with the Tyrolean moon base set. Although the weird hive thing was from the internet. It was the hive that they blow up. That was from the internet. So that was just internet footage of a hive base that was thing. Kind of looks like something out of Halo or something. It's not, but I think it's one of the Isaac Arthur com-based things from his like different backgrounds they use. They're freeware off the internet, so there's a lot of freeware stuff. The fireworks are freeware stuff. That was just pictures, stuff like that. From Pixels, go to pixels.com and look up the freeware. That's where you find that for free. Yes, none of it is for sale. So you have you have the ships and stuff. And the opening scene where they're on the hull, and it's because I shot the scene on what looked like a hull. So I was like, oh, the Veritechs have to be landed on something. I'll put them on the flat deck, on one of the flat deck things, or like sitting on it. So I have to like shoot the footage to match that. So here's the footage where they're sitting. And on the model, you can see where they've drawn the Veritech in on the little Veritechs. Uncle Bill would like this thing. It's right up his alley. He'd be like, "Oh yeah, you built your aircraft carrier." Took you all of since 2015. What was it? 85 when that show was on. Well, it's 2023. It took you almost 40 years. Huh? 30, yeah, almost 38 years. Yeah, finally got your accurate SDF, like, do you remember Love model? Except it doesn't transform. And the bioship was built out of scraps from the Chimera models that were left over. It's just scraps together. That one looks more like an aircraft carrier. It's got like a middle part that lands in it. Probably like that too. Maybe alien spaceship. It wasn't an alien spaceship. And I'm using techniques that I borrowed from various sci-fi movies, including Star Trek and Star Wars, an Alien and stuff. The inspiration for the paint job is clearly, and anime as well, is clearly inspired by all of that. They see that there's crosses at the back of this Mac cross. That's fine. Nah, there's a lot of little fun details. But I'll have to do a review of the ships for the Trekkers or something. I'll do a review of the ship. Up close, like all over the ship. Think of the ship with all the good lights. You can actually see it. It's not a 3D model. Not a 3D model. This is a model on a set. This is old school. Like, why would this guy do this without 3D modeling? I'm not a 3D model. You've seen my 3D modeling. It's not that good. There's a little bit of it in this. There's a little bit. Yeah, there's a little bit of 3D modeling. You've seen the 3D modeling. It's in the beginning. Yeah, there's a little bit of, and it's fine. It's when the narrator is narrating the moon blast, and there's like this 3D image of lightning, Photoshop lightning, and then the fireworks from the fireworks thing off in the distance going. That was a computer generated scene right there. Yeah, it took like an hour to do that. Well, considering Transformers Meet Robotech took 12 years, Star Crackers kind of did too, but no, the other one took about 12 years. 2001 roughly to 2000. No, it wasn't 12 years. No, it took 12 years to appear, but it wasn't 12 years. It was 8 years. But still, that's a lot. And this one, well, let's say Transtech 1 took maybe 3 years to produce up to 2003. So let's say Transtech 1. Let's compare this to 1, this episode, because it's like 1. It's 3 hours like that one was. Yeah, took 3 years. This time took maybe 14 days. So, and it's pretty much just me doing all the voices. There were some cameos by Mark's cards. You'll definitely catch them in the movie, in the making of, at least. Did have some cameo on the set. Some of the characters are briefly Mark's cards in the background. Some of the like grunts and stuff. That's pretty much it. It's the Invid Queen. What? Apollonicus? What? Say my name again. I don't understand. Who's Apollonicus? Oh yeah, Apollonicus was supposed to have a Greek accent. See, Apollonicus sounds Greek. He diverted to Bela Lugosi a little bit. He started to sound like Bela Lugosi. A little bit of Ricardo Montalban. He's supposed to be Greek, but he kind of went Spanish. And then he went Eastern European a little bit. The Regis also did that. But I figured that the part where the Regis was suddenly talking really fast near the end, they've regenerated her. Now she's in her body again. She's not an ethereal creature. So she figured she had to get through with what she was saying. Yeah, so she was like, okay, I'm in a corporeal form now. I have to get through with what I'm saying, so I'm not going to be all sultry. I'm talking to the other Decepticons. I want to get my point across. So I'm going to talk to them now and just get it out. Yeah, I was a little off, but I figured, yeah, she had her form back. So she's like, I don't need to act differently in front of the people. The other people are Decepticons. I'll just act me. I'll just play me. That's what she's figuring. That's what I figured. So she just plays her. Yeah, but I did screw up. There was originally Remy and K-Bell were supposed to have Eastern European accents too, but they disappeared pretty quick, and they didn't have them again. And Streets should have a slightly street talking jive accent, but only slightly. It's like he's like jazz basically, and he does pretty much. There's a couple of times he doesn't, but whatever. Because he's Streets. His name is Streets. Originally it's supposed to be Streetwise, but it's Streets. Yeah, and he is if you want to get him, he's a Amazon Selects. He's the sort of a version of Trailbreaker. I forget what his name is, but he's a version of Trailbreaker. Blue Trailbreaker. Yeah, he's got his Diaclone name though, like Tread Shot or something like that. Oh yeah, and the Regent is looks like a Target exclusive, but he's not. It's because there's a Target on his chest. That's Leo Prime, just Leo Prime from Legacy. If you want to get that one, we're not selling it. It's just you want to go out and get one for yourself and reenact the scene with Primus. Yeah, the Studio Series Dark of the Moon Optimus Prime for the Prime there, and the small one in the mini Prime. That's Voyager class, not Leader class. The Voyager class one, which is ridiculous that he's Voyager class. And then there's the 6 Zor was a Laser Optimus Prime Voyager class from, well, they said Leader, but it's not. It's Voyager. From the other one, from Legacy as well. So yeah, if you want to rebuild him, and the Galvatron and the TV Galvatron are literally the two from the Amazon. The Amazon exclusive TV Galvatron, and the other one is the broken up Siege Galvatron. They're all both from Siege. So the Legacy one is the Siege one, kind of. The Legacy one is just a re-release with the paint. Yeah. Ooh, so Apollonicus is Treadwing or something, or the guy. Yeah. So. From he's a griffin. At times his head is funny, but I didn't fix it. I figured, maybe he was roughed up a little and his head was kind of blah because he on his swivel because he'd been beaten up by the Dinobots or something. And we just don't have Snarl yet. He's not out. He disappeared quickly. He disappeared overnight. We tried to get him, but he was gone. We pre-ordered, but pre-order sold out. No Snarl. So there's my long-winded, probably longer than the video. We on the first after show, the Transformer thing. I want to watch a trailer for Transformers here. Transformers Reactivate. Wouldn't it be cooler to call it reactivation? Just saying, because that sounds cooler. Reactivate doesn't, yeah. You got to come up with it, having done this for years since I was a little kid. Yeah. There were kids at the church group talking about Power Rangers. Now, little different Power Rangers were awesome. The Sunday school class, teaching Sunday school, and I was a Transformers person. Said I was into Transformers when it started in the 80s, 84. To which one of them said, "Oh, my dad watched that when he was." I said, "Yeah, I know your father." Yeah, we probably both watched it at the same time. Transformers, yes. I'm sure we watched Transformers. Everybody watched Transformers back then. And it was geeky and dorky to watch Transformers and G.I. Joe. And back in the day. And so but then the Michael Bay movies, after the Armada saga was still kind of a niche thing, even though it was Japanese and American animated together. Took Japanese shows and updated them and redubbed them, 2002 to 2005. Around the same time, we were making the Transtech stuff. That was cool. Remember, we stopped in the middle of filming Transtech Part 1 to briefly review, and didn't put it up anywhere, briefly review Armada Episode 1. Watched it. Stopped production to watch Armada Episode 1. Transformers Armada. And you're like, oh yeah, we just saw Transformers Armada. Here's one of the toys from Armada that in the background. We just watched it. Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, Tim was there, and he was Big Tim was there, and he was all, I don't like the Minicon thing. It was kind of silly. But I thought you liked the mini Autobots. No, not the way they did it there. Oh. But yeah, that review is gone. But it was interesting. But yeah, they went mainstream with the Michael Bay movies. Even though the Michael Bay movies are cheesy, the first one's fun. The first Bumblebee movie is good. And I like that. I like some elements of Dark of the Moon. Some of it works. Some elements of all of them kind of work. But yeah, the night one was awful. The last night was just no guys, no, stop. Extinction. I gotta like some of Age of Extinction. We're in it. Dark of the Moon. I gotta like some of it because we're in it. Well, kind of. We're characters. But yeah, we weren't paid. We're just in it. And yeah, there's literally Mark Skars's real name is the protagonist in 1 and 2 of the reboot with Mark Wahlberg playing Mark Skars, which is really really strange that Marky Mark would be playing Mark Skars. That just as Cade Yeager. So there you go. Was essentially Rick Hunter. You wanted to call him Rick Hunter, I guess. I couldn't get away with that name. So you want to call him Yeager is Hunter. Yeah. But no, it was really. Not Strawberry. That's something else. That's somebody else from Pine Hill. Yeah. So yeah, the Transformers became cool, and now it's not just niche. They have conventions. Well, in the 90s, all through the 2000s, they had conventions. I've never been to a Transformers convention directly. Closest I got was the Comic Cons in San Jose. That would have they do those, and they'd have or the Big Wow convention. They used to, that became the Comic Con, or they'd have something called the Time Tunnel Toy Super Show, and that would have the most Transformers. And yeah, it was after the pandemic they started that up. They've had a couple of those since, but we haven't been able to go because they're at the same time as the other conventions. Maybe there'll be one soon, and we can go to another toy show. But yeah, there's probably one due in September, I would think. We'll see. So let's yeah, I'm not going to review that trailer. I'm just going to watch it. Yeah, and there was a controversy about the Spark, the Earth Spark character. Oh, there's an Earth Spark character that's trans. Well, I think we've already been over that. That's silly because they're all trans. They're robots. They're all. They don't have gender. They're robots. They can make their gender just immediately. So they're all trans. They're Transformers. It's in the title. So yeah, butthurt and get over it. Right wingers who probably aren't watching Transformers anyways, because why would they watch Transformers? That's for dorks and nerds. Yeah, why would you guys be watching that? You wouldn't be. You wouldn't be watching. Yeah, they were knocking the Barbie movie. They're insulting all men, and yeah, even some relatives something. It's like no, they were insulting Ken for being a doofus, trying to imitate men. He didn't know what he was doing. It's clear in the Barbie movie that he's just misreading what he's seeing, and goes back to Barbie Land and messes it up. Because he's misreading what he's seeing. He doesn't actually see misogynists. He just thinks that that's how men act. He's like a man-child who walks into like on a beach or something, and just assumes he's God's gift to women or something. Like, yeah, it's because he doesn't know any better, because he's just not been taught that way. It's like, yeah, he didn't know what he was doing. They didn't go after him to get rid of him. They went after him to stop him from being a doofus. That's okay. Ooh. And she had issues too with a Barbie character in the story. And her own issues about her version of femininity, masculinity versus femininity, in a very broad sense. And there was no message other than be your true self that you were born to be, kind of deal, new agey kind of stuff. Do what you have with your calling. Her calling was to be a sci-fi or guy doing blogging videos and do that. Do what you love. Life is short. Yeah. So, these people that are all butthurt about like different, these movie characters don't match my idea of movie characters. It's like, yeah, but who are you? Why do you care? You just want clicks on your videos. They're going to come to my website. Yeah, but they're going to come to your website for the wrong reasons. They're going to come to your website because they're mad. They're going to post their troll you. Like, we want that. We don't want that. It kind of looks like Transformers Prime. Huh. I didn't mind Transformers Prime. Good job. Transformers Animated was a little too silly, but a little weird designs. But Transformers Prime was fine. G1 though. G1's a better one. No. It's like, yeah, Prime was good. The Super Link one during the Armada saga was silly. Splitting themselves in half, and top half becomes the other robot. That was a little much. Gestalts make more sense. Combiner War kind of makes more sense. They don't split themselves in half. They just merge with each other, which sounds kind of kinky, but they're robots. I don't think anything of it. Clang, the spark energy thing. They did make a mistake in the story, though, and I left it in. In that the Starscream character who is playing is somebody else in this one, and Shockwave, who is somebody else. This one are discussing the Gestalts and everything, and Starscream created the Combaticons. He didn't mess it up by making 6 of them, like Devastator. He messed it up by making he made Combaticons. He made a Quintro combination to make the Combaticons. So Shockwave was wrong. He's all, I thought you made those 6 robots together instead of 5, and that was corrupted. My technology. Like, no, there were 5. There were just 5. I don't know what he was referring to. Now, if he was saying that to Megatron, maybe he was in the original story in an earlier draft. He's saying it to Megatron. You had to create Constructicons with 6, and it was corruption of the technology. Maybe he was saying it to Megatron originally. Got changed. Oh well, nothing serious. They don't end up showing them at all because, yeah, they wasted 2 of them on Apollonicus, and the 3 of them. They wasted 3 of them. They wasted 3 of them on Apollonicus and the Queen Regis and the other guy. When they went down to the chamber to repair it, and Ritter, Robert Ritter too. The 3 of them. Just 3 of them. And they might have given one of them to the girl, Solaria. They might have given... So they've wasted 4 of them, so there's 2 running around. I think one of them becomes somebody becomes a Trypticon-like kaiju in one of these. I think the next one. Not sure. But yeah, the frames are... battle frames are running around somewhere. But yes, I've rambled on for a long time. But I decided to go on about blogging about this awesome thing. This bringing back Robotech meets the Transformers, bringing back Transtech. Also, Transtech is a company, but of no relation. There's a company called Transtech. So And that existed 20 years ago. So probably what happened mainly is that Hasbro didn't know there was a company called Transtech, and then they looked it up on the early internet, and they're, oh shit, we can't call our toy line that. This other company, this computer company, is going to get mad. And they're going to be like, wait a minute. That's probably what happened. That's probably really what happened. Company. I don't know what they make, but they don't make Transformers. It should have been called Simultech. From Transformers with Robotech. Simultech. The failure of history to destroy itself. Technology is the wave of the future, they would say on the poster, until Strawberry men shot it up. Took the poster down. Technology is a wave of the future. When he gets revenge on his corporation by back in the day by using Devastator as a footman, sort of. The super soldier. He borrows Devastator. I just thought that would be hilariously over the top to basically imitate back in the day at Pine Hill at high school with that Megatron would show up and shoot the bullies. And I drew pictures of that, and would have gotten us in a lot of trouble now if we were kids. I'm like, okay, you're gonna go to the counselor's office. You want to blow people up with guns and ammo and stuff. But we didn't really. We were just kidding. Transformer giant robots doing it. Send us to psychiatric facility or something nowadays. But so the gag was the Transformers Robotech. And Strabo gives a metal shot. Has borrowed Devastator from Galvatron, and he's like, I want to go over to my ex-company and take it over so he can build robots. I guess Galvatron's okay with it because, hey, he can build more robots. Sure, why not? So he goes over there, and he grabs the ex-CEO guy in probably the most brutal scene in the movie, besides the falling in from the parachute of Ace, who falls down and melts. So we had to reshoot Ace falling down and melting from Carta so that it looked better. It was basically a remake of the Trans 2 Carta saga. And so we have this guy, and he's falling down. And he goes to the CEO guy, grabs him, has his men haul him out into the front of the building and says, I'm taking over, or something, and I'm not taking over the company from you. And now I must fire you, and I have an idea how to do it, or something like that. And then he goes, no, don't do it. And he goes, I've got a better idea. Devastator, load him into your cannon, fire him. Load him into your cannon and fire him. He goes, and they showed like the little guy loading up the gun, and I put on a glove. It wasn't even a glove. It was a sock. I didn't have a glove. It looked fake. And then Devastator's hand reaches up and loads the cannon. The cannon was a flashlight because you had to do it in scales. Loads him into the cannon like he's a powder keg. The G.I. Joe in there. It was Gorky. It was Commander Gorky. And he takes him and he's like, and then they show a close up of him going, Mark's Cards filmed the shot. Yeah, there were two scenes. I filmed part and he filmed part. I filmed the gore part where he it's blasted into a wall and Gorky's lying there with his head blasted open, plaster stuff, plastic, tiny little bit of gore on there. Covered him in ketchup and hot sauce and splattered him up against the wall. Because you figure if he shot him with a cannon, he would be splattered up against the wall. And it was like the goriest scene of the movie. It gave us the PG-13 rating. They're like, okay, you get your PG-13 rating. And then there was another part where they said, well, we got the PG-13 rating. We want to go even further. You have a Wolverine that we could, or somebody that we could mangle or something. I had a Wolverine whose arms could come off. So I thought, wow, let's have a scene where he cuts off Wolverine's arms and then ketchup spurts out. He falls over and goes, because Strabog is powerful and he's got Marvel technology because it's Marvel crossover. And he has an adamantium sickle. He has the Scythe of Destiny. He has a little mini one, and he's got an adamantium sickle, and he's got a mini one. So it goes up to Wolverine, and Wolverine's indestructible alloy cannot withstand another indestructible alloy axe, right? So he just goes, cuts the 2 arms off. The arms fall off on the ground. The shot, and they like, ah! And then he goes, ah, 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 and he like falls backward. It's hilarious. Oops. He fell back. I think he fell backward. He didn't fall forward. He might have fallen forward. I think he fell backward. Yeah, he did not do like the guy in Nessun Dorma where he punches the guy and on the set of that movie that we were, yeah, that I was background. And there was this movie where the guy punches a guy in the face and he punches him. And for some reason, he leans into the punch each time. Yeah, and my sister and I were on the set of this movie, San Francisco. Finally, we blurted out after like 20 takes. Look, he's punching him in the face. He's not going to fall forward. He's going to fall backwards. The director says, I'm the director. I know what I'm doing. And they're all, that kid's right. He's we wanted to say that to the director, but we didn't. See, I'll show you. I would demonstrate. Yes. And Martha went, zip, and it went this way, zip, and it was like, see? No, I am the director. I will do the scene correctly. And I said, and they went on to do the scene, and it's like, it didn't work. And finally, in the actual released movie, he kind of like half did it. He really, really wanted to have him fall forward with fake blood gushing out of his nose. Which, yeah, after only one hit, it's gonna make it gush that much. Kept putting more on. Movies. At least it's a more efficient development on the set of we had a more efficient shoot on the set of the other movie with the ninja kids in it, the 3 ninjas, where the Grandmaster and the Ernie Reyes people and the other ones were on the set, and they just had us stand in line like sparring in the background while the kids walked by, and we'd be in the background and we'd just be making like martial art noises, sparring in the background. And that went well. There wasn't any mess ups on that. Yeah, we did our thing in the background. They used some of the footage in part 2, even though it didn't. They just cut back to it. They liked it. Because their guy was in it. Yeah, he's oh, there. Yeah. So, yeah, I can choreograph a fight scene pretty well. Kind of. Sort of. Stunt, at least a stunt fight scene. So yeah. Yes, although the fight scenes in this the Robotech thing, the Transformers thing are a little off because of their size. Doesn't quite match. The Veritechs are actually much larger than the Transformers, which I just went with the scene where the Metallico martial artist Transformer girl, who was originally supposed to be somebody else. It was originally supposed to be that the Skull dude, Bludgeon, originally, but it wasn't in this version. It wasn't Bludgeon, but the same size as Bludgeon. She's a jet, but the same size as the tank guy, and she's fighting the Grimlock guy, who was playing Beast Sword, and she's and I went with it there. I just said, okay, yeah, the scale is completely weird. Let's just have a line thrown in there as like an offhanded line saying, of course, yes, I would defeat her, but she is literally half my height. It's not fair. It's just, okay. So I just, that's how you do it when you have, yeah. Like, it's not fair. It's like she's a mini-con compared to me. I can't do anything. Anyway, so yeah, there's a scene from the movie. It's a fight scene. Fight scene. So yeah, yeah. Looking back on a 3-hour thing that went by real quick on a Sunday, and yeah. And then the story guide, yeah, the day that it aired is yesterday. So yeah, and there's already about a dozen people that have seen it. So it's already getting some views, which is nice. Yeah, and you can watch the other ones, and you're probably part of the subscribers that have already watched the other ones, or you wouldn't be there. But like and subscribe and have more people watching it, because it's fine. Why 14? It's not for kids, but they can watch it. It's fine. There's nothing untoward in it. Anything that's suggestive is really vague, and you know, it's not like they haven't heard like about other stuff. Yeah, it's like a thriller, a space thriller. It's another Transformers story. It's 3 more 1-hour episodes packed into one as a all together as a new season of Mush has started, and you're right here for it. Awesome. So here we are. Yeah.